I think we should just talk more about flash paper this whole time. Talk about
I mean, maybe that's the topic today. You know,
oh my gosh, we've started. Hey everybody, on episode 52. No, hi everybody. Welcome to the Tellman and Fellman Show, episode 52. One of my favorite numbers because I'm a magician. There's 52 cards in a deck, 52 weeks in a year, and 52 voices in my head. Hello everybody. My name's Harris Fellman, and over on the other side there,
I'm Tellman Knutson. Welcome to the Tellman and Fellman Show. Today, we have a very interesting individual that I've known for, I think, about 24 years. So Scott McFall and I met a long time ago. We have a little intro for you, and then we just had a bunch of great conversation that happened before we went live. So we're going to dive back into it and get into all sorts of madness. Happy Halloween, everybody. Harris, tell us about Scott.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you that today on episode 52 of the Tellman and Fellman Show, prepare for a mind-bending journey with hypnosis expert Scott McFall. F-Bert, I don't know what that would be. With over 30 years of experience, Scott's a master hypnotist and, more importantly, a transformational coach renowned for his dynamic personality, insightful, no-nonsense approach, and he's trained thousands in hypnotic persuasion. That's how did Tellman get you on the show? He must have hypnotically persuaded you, guiding clients to break barriers, unlock potential, and reshape the mental scripts holding them back from quitting smoking, the easy stuff, to achieving peak performance, the easier stuff. Scott's blend of humor and expertise makes the mysterious world of hypnosis accessible and entertaining. Join Tellman and Fellman for laughs, revelations, and some unforgettable mind-bending moments. Please welcome Scott McFall.
Yay. That's right. Welcome, Scott.
Hi, guys. How are you?
We're good. It's nice to get to meet you. We talked a little bit beforehand. Tellman only told me that you were a hypnotist. I didn't know that you also do stage hypnosis.
I didn't realize you were a magician either, but I'm not at all surprised. Right, but I didn't.
Well, he didn't say he was a magician. He said he had magician friends, but it sounds like you are a magician as well.
Yeah, I think somewhere 25-year member of the Magic Castle. Yeah.
Oh wow, I'm a zero member of the Magic Circle. I had an audition, the exam on Monday, and I had it as 8 p.m. in my.
Oh no! I don't even want to know.
And it was at 6:30. It was really at 6:30, and I had it at 8 because I had a bunch. I had 5 or 6 shows this month, and they were all at 8 p.m. So my brain was just perform at 8, and then it was 6 o'clock, and I'm an hour away from there, more than an hour away from there, and I'm like, oh no. Well, a friend of mine was like, hey, I'm on my way. I'm like, oh, that's early. I was like, oh no, you're not early.
Okay. Well, I missed you guys yesterday. Same thing.
That's fair.
Well, I'm excited for you to do that. It's great to test yourself that way. That's great, Tellman. It's great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, there is an email that I haven't opened yet. I mean, not hopefully. I know there's an email that I haven't opened yet. Asking me when I'd like to reschedule. So they're kind about it. So that should be fun. Yeah, I've been doing it I've really only been actively performing for 4 years and trying to for 5 or 6, like learning for 5 or 6, kind of something that came back to me. So, wow, that's really cool. Well, this is a marketing show, although I find magic more interesting. Maybe we'll go down that road again and talk about, well, you did talk about how juggling comes into play. So it's interesting, your mix of expertise and application. I'm interested to hear that. But let's talk about your origin story. This is do you have a marketing, internet marketing background at all? Is there any of that? Do you sell stuff online?
Sure. I mean, I consult for a lot of practices and internet marketing companies. I'm currently consulting for to my knowledge, the largest internet marketing company that does orthodontists, for example. But I do a lot of that. But most of my work is with behaviorists, hypnotists, neurolinguists, people who run large seminar companies, people who run clinics. And that's because I did have a chain of those for a number of years myself, going through thousands of clients. But then I became, like everyone following the same steps, corporate speaker, trainer, doing platform stuff. But I became interested in hypnosis and magic in a heart surgery when I was 11 years old. The nurse would distract me with using hypnosis for pain management and that kind of game with self-hypnosis, and became very interested in my own neediness of the techniques, you know.
Yeah.
And so when you've used them yourself, obviously you're a little bit more of a zealot for something, you know. And so I grew up in that. And my father was a student of Harry Aaron's. My grandfather was an alternative care physician with a large practice. And so our family was into all of this in the first place. And then marketing, I was a devotee of a guy named Russ Yarnell, who was he was one of the people who went through the $1 Million Roundtable with Joe Carbo, who wrote Lazy Man's Way to Riches. So I have a long legacy of marketing, communication.
The old school direct response, like direct mail era, right? Like that. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's it's like foundational direct response stuff.
Right. Then I went into, going to University of Central Florida for digital marketing in their programs, as well as all of the people I was consulting for. So I used to wonder why Johnny Gone never advertised as a magic builder, but it's because he was too busy with what he already had to ever need to bother, And unfortunately, oftentimes now I'm very busy with the people that I'm already training. We do have a sailing and NLP thing that I'm doing quite a bit, where people fly in and do NLP and life work on the sailboat for 3 days to 4 days. So 3 people will fly in. They go through an experience where they're put through the unusual, learning to sail, being in a 43-foot yacht, being in another world, so that the learning is different. And so a lot of advanced therapists, psychologists, MDs, and hypnotists fly in to get on the boat and get played with that way. And so from what I'm doing, I'm liking to train people in a unique environment. And that's why your magic is so good, because it gives someone an ability to wonder, to know they don't know for a minute.
Yeah.
And go into imagination and begin to learn instead of just think they know.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I came upon it, I guess, in a way that I don't think I value it enough. Like, my grandfather taught me, some card tricks. He owned a bar, and how to, get a quarter out of somebody by saying the next card's going to be yours or whatever, and then my mom. I mean, I don't know why I don't value art enough. Yet I just so badly want to live a creative life. It's really interesting. I like hearing that. Yes.
Well, if you want to live a creative life, the best way to do that is to make other people have a creative life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so great when you're accountable outside of your own head to what's happening with somebody else.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
And so the magic of perception is always inside of another person, isn't it? It's never what we're doing. It's what they're doing with what we're doing. Right? And so the question is, can you make them value it enough?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And my dad, I did a stage show I owned a dinner theater for a number of years that had about 300 seats, and a great chef. And I redid an old 1920s movie house and did magic and comedy at this place and stage hypnosis, as well as having many other shows there. And I came off the stage one day, Fellman, and I had done this stage hypnosis show. There was a standing ovation, some illusions in it, And my dad, I remember I was getting the standing ovation, and I was thinking, I really want a sandwich. and my dad walked up to me afterward, and he said, "That was the best show you ever did." And I'm like, I was bored.
Yeah.
And that's the secret to making magic, is it's what they get that's the magic. And when I needed something from that audience, I could get to a certain place. But when I needed nothing from that audience, I got to a very different place. And so I love the idea of watching the magic in their face instead of in me.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I mean, I have gotten around to that side of it. I mean, I love their reaction more. Like, I don't care about me doing a trick, and I'm not into the I'm gonna fool you or
You mentioned your grandfather.
Yeah.
My grandfather loved doing card tricks at the lake house. And he would take a hat and say a rabbit appeared in it, and now the rabbit is gone. And then he'd dump raisins out of the hat to prove the rabbit was in there. And in a young child's mind, as you're learning and growing, it's interesting. Can you tolerate a trick?
Yeah, I'd love to see one. I want to do one every show, but we started trying to do that, and then we never got to it.
Here, Scott, let me spotlight you, okay? Let me adjust.
Well, I might need to see both of you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you will.
This is going to be a participation thing. We have a normal deck of cards here, as far as you know.
Okay.
And
Tellman, you can make it where he's full screen and it's just the two of us. Yeah, that's even better.
Okay.
Nope.
Is that okay, Scott? How does that work for you?
It's what I live for, Tellman. I'm so excited about it.
Do it.
Okay, so you'll notice, and I've never really tried to play with this on camera before, but I'll shuffle them up. And what I want you to do, Tellman, is just tell me when to stop riffling through the pack.
Okay. Stop.
Right there?
Yep.
Would you like to change your mind, Tellman?
No.
If I had your mind, I'd think about it, buddy. But okay, and I'll tell you what, I'll cut the deck right there. We both already seen the 7, so you stop me right here. Can you remember your card?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Fellman?
Yeah.
Give me a number between 1 and 10.
7.
7. When I have you count through this in a moment with me, I just want you to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You think you can handle that?
I think I can.
We'll shuffle them up again. So count them out, Fellman.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
You see your card? Can you remember it for later?
Oh, that's my card. Okay, yes.
Coffee. I'm telling you, coffee. All right, so we've got those 2 cards that you 2 picked. That was really fun. I don't do card tricks, but this was great. This was really fun. Actually, my grandpa loved card tricks, as I told you, at the lake house. And, the other day I was crawling around in the attic and I found this box. And I went back in time in my mind because this box contains my grandpa's glasses.
Ah.
And I thought that today it might be fun to see if we could get the spirit of my grandpa, who liked to joke around, he liked to play at the table. And I thought maybe we could get his help with what we're doing.
Whoa!
Tellman, isn't that what you picked?
It is indeed.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
My grandpa would just love to watch the faces of people as they learned or changed, teach people stuff. Fellman?
Yeah. There it
2
is.
of diamonds. Grandpa helps a lot.
I like it.
Wonderful to have the spirit of the people that we learn from and respect. It's so fun. And, it's interesting to think about how magical you can make learning with hypnosis, drama, NLP, and that marketing as the great uninvited guest online really needs to be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, really, especially nowadays, more and more. Well, always. It's really always had to be. It's interesting, my grandfather left me a little piece of glass, and I should find out if it does that too. I have no idea.
Maybe they were friends. So I really love the idea that in the old days, we used to say it took a frequency of 4 to get someone to think about what you're telling them and get them to respond to a message or an ad. On the internet, it takes 8 no's to get a yes. How does this relate to hypnosis? Because it takes more repetition for the map in their head to match what you're saying than it did 20 years ago.
Oh, because there's more input, there's more distractions, more alternate ways of, just why would that be the case? We
used to say that you'd get, intensify the pain of the problem, show the solution, prove the solution, take away the risk, ask for action, and show the consequences for not responding.
Yep.
Nowadays, ladies and gentlemen, it goes attention, interest, consideration, and the debate phase in their brain is very long as they go from
There are a lot of options, right? Like we
right.
have, yeah. Right.
So this relates to maturity in the sense that the bell curve of maturity is the same as bell curve of grief. And that means denial, 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 anger, anger, anger at having to respond, bargaining, only accepting part of it, only accepting part of it, only accepting part of it, surrendering in to a decision, which can feel bummery, and then acceptance and action, acceptance and action. Well, that negotiation phase in the middle, now they think they're being intelligent when they're really caught in what Fritz Perls called top dog, underdog thinking. I should do this, but I want to do that, but I should do this, but I want to do that. Right. So to get them confident about a decision, ladies and gentlemen, is very different. And they are less secure with the increased technology. The anxiety and the weird decision strategy problem goes up, not down.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's like talking about short attention span theater with, the rise of shorts and reels and TikTok and how all the short form video obviously is currently king of social media and provides evidence of what appeared to be an ever shortening attention span. So like, it's almost like that tendency to flip from, to be fully involved in ADD culture, from ding, 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 channel to channel to channel to channel to channel, lessens one's degree of commitment to any decisions they make because they're constantly being. Yeah, that's interesting.
So think about this, just to add another dimension to what we're discussing. If Fritz Perls was right, and maturity is the ability to deal with frustrated desire alone without acting out, all of the stimulation and short tick, 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 tick is robbing the ability to mature because there's always another decision that you get to pick what you want. So as this robbing of maturity happens, external awareness is robbed, which then changes whether or not there's even a conscience. Because there isn't time to think about what's happening with that other person.
There's no time for consideration.
Yeah. So the problem is, it's like if an elephant is standing on your foot, believe me, you're thinking about you.
Right.
So a person who's in pain can look like a narcissist when they are not fundamentally one, because in a sense, there's an elephant standing on their foot. So if you give a child precocious development and they're making all of these choices for themselves without having to learn to first be guided, there's a catastrophe in adulthood of anxiety, pressure, and stress, which then makes them never get to independence. They want to have the government take care of them, the company take care of them. They do not know that they do not know what they do not know.
Right.
Since the process of maturity and decision-making is not based on information, but rather it's based on a series of feelings and reactions that allow external patience. So the more information, and the more information is worshipped, the less maturity and the less insight. So we're in the law of inverse development, where information itself is the poison. And so we have a horrible situation where, like, I watch people coming out of a Copperfield show in Vegas. Now, I liked David more, to be frank, in the 80s and 90s when he was doing the romantic stuff. But today, that's still a multi-million-dollar show. And I'm watching people come out of the show in anhedonia, where they're flat. They just watch this multi-million-dollar thing where things they don't understand are happening, and they're wandering out like they're in a dystopian experience. So the thing is, and of course you watch America's Got Talent today, and there's so much projection mapping being used that it looks like you're watching video effects rather than magic effects.
Yeah.
So the problem is, in the book, The Logic of Failure by Dietrich Dorner, he mentions that there are people who get so into the workings of the clock and the cogs and the sprockets and how a clock works that they forget that the valuable thing is time, not the clock. And so we're in a situation where, when we're trying to get someone to make a real decision and then value it later, especially someone who's selling consulting education, development, skills building. We have a new problem, which is the marketing and advertising has to imply the need to comply. It has to imply the need to comply with what they're learning. Because usually they're just getting information and deciding how they judge it, getting information, deciding how they judge it. There is no actual expectation of compliance. And so this creates a new issue where their decision-making strategy is similar to picking their favorite ice cream at Baskin and Robbins. Rather than looking at the future, deciding which skills they're going to need and complying with their own future or their own dream.
Right. It's all short-term and reactive. It's not at all strategic, right?
And there's always something else to react to.
Yeah.
So when you're in my age, we remember the two sides of this. But a person who's 5 years old right now, 7 years old right now, 12 years old right now, very different.
Yeah, growing up in a totally different processing environment, right?
Right. And that's why the age we're targeting in a niche is everything now. What age range are you trying to help or get to buy your product or get to react? The age range is everything.
And that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about this, Scott. This is really very insightful. Like, we talk about, I was selling both hypnosis stuff and internet marketing stuff 20 years ago, and everyone
doing it well, by the way,
and doing exceptionally well. But then things started changing, right?
Yeah.
And the marketing that used to work no longer works in the same way, and you're like left scratching your head, wondering: is it the platform? Is it the technique? Is it the strategy? Is it the methodology? Is it this? And those things are all kind of true because they're all factors. Like all strategies come and go in different markets, and
there's that
were once novel are now lame and boring, and I've seen that a million times. But what's interesting is the shift, the attention span shift, and it's not the language that you're using, but it's like
think about
the frameworks in which it's presented, right? Like,
consider the brain a second. Okay. Think about cortisol, dopamine, adrenaline, oxytocin, right? Like there are theories about psychopathy, psychopaths, where it's like they're getting oxytocin at the pain of another instead of at a hug, right? And of course, every study of these kinds of things is but the thing is that that you understand the idea. The idea is there's always something to do. There's always something to get. They're going into adrenal fatigue, or they're going into responding differently to cortisol, and what you're talking about. It's exhausting as a marketer. Nobody has to be more mature than a brilliant marketer who really wants results, because they have to face reality. They have to belly up to the bar of reality and notice whether it's working or not working instead of dazzling people. There's nothing harder, perhaps other than being a general in a war, than to have to face change every day and recognize there is no such thing as a permanent marketing solution.
Yeah.
And so what I would say is this: we can't get their attention because they're out of attention to give. We can't, so what we have to be willing to realize is without attention, there's no chance for interest. Without attention, there's no chance for interest. And more than ever, that poem by Victor Schwab, in How to Write a Good Advertisement by Victor Schwab, tell me quick or tell me true, or else my love, to hell with you. Less how this damn thing came to be and more what the damn thing does for me. Does it hike up my pay with a welcome jerk? Does it save me money or time or work? Perhaps it will make my appearance so swell that my telephone calls will wear out the bell. Well, Schwab was a genius in realizing their interest, everyone's favorite subject, is themselves. On the internet, unfortunately, they niche in their group and they don't have to mature. So niches are everything, because people are thinking I'm on the left, I'm on the right, and they can pick their tribe that matches their values and never have to pop out of their values, especially in social media.
We know what just happened.
Yes, there's a prostate development. Okay, so yes.
When you speak of mature, like what are some of the components of that? Because I think that I've had some of my maturity challenged here in the last few years. I feel that way, and I don't know that I necessarily want to be incredibly mature, but I guess you mean maybe mature in the marketing sense. So I've had a business for 10, 11, 12 years, and this year it got hacked, and it's not in a good place, but I was pretty comfortable for like 10 years, and I kind of got away.
Nothing is more dangerous and toxic than comfort.
I used to think that the word content and complacent was like the same thing. Like
it almost is, but Fellman, it almost is.
Yeah.
So keep this in mind. The best thing that ever happened to you is that this business went to pot. Because you were like in a warm blanket and missing life. Yes. And the thing is, you poor guy, you were under a heating blanket and you didn't realize that the game was outside. So right now you've had the best thing that could ever have happened to you. You're awake. You've got to change. You've got to look around outside. You got to be in your senses. You can't walk around in that tribe. Yeah, I'm a businessman. I've got a great business. Everything is going great. The worst thing that can happen is that.
Yeah.
And so you've had just this magical thing happen where you need to find out that you can love learning. That's the maturity game. And for those of us who had decades and decades of success, like Tellman, like you, like me, and one day I wake up and I'm living the plot of the book, Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah.
I
should reread that now, shouldn't I? Yeah, you're right though. I love learning, and I always have, and so like jumping back into it.
Yeah, just wait a sec. Back up, Fellman.
Yeah.
You have to love learning that starts out against your will.
Oh.
Not the ones you love in the first place. You have to be willing to realize you need a strategy to be played counter to type.
Okay.
Wait. Explain that. A strategy to be played counter to type. I don't understand what you mean.
Well, you remember a guy named Dick Sutphin was a pretty famous hypnotist.
Oh, I remember Dick Sutphin. He also had like infomercials on TV. I think he at one point, right? He
had a very famous book that a lot of people hated. But let me just make the point I was making though to stay on the relevant point.
Yeah.
I want you to fall in love with this. Dick used to say, "You'll never copy what you resent." And usually the secrets you need are in what you used to resent.
Mm.
And so if you don't play yourself counter to type and realize that the secrets are in the place where your values weren't seeing what mattered, because we all think us and them. We want to be, my dad used to say, everyone wants the white hat on in the movie. There's white hats and black hats, and everyone firmly believes that they're wearing a white hat. And to make everybody learn right, you got to make everybody's hat gray. And at least for a while, Tellman, you knew Will Horton. Will is
I know Will.
Will is a brilliant formal modeler. And there are all kinds of things I really respect about Will. He and I differ radically on our experience with spontaneity. Like if you think about spontaneous versus deliberate, Will is a very disciplined person, and he should be very proud of it. I like the stress of spontaneity.
Well, I mean, you were like, "Hey, I'll jump on the talk show." You were one. I was going to ask you at the beginning of this is like, what caused you to be like, "Yeah, of course, I'd love to come on the Tellman and Fellman Show. Let me know when." And then you were enthusiastic about just let me know when and I'll be there versus making it a pain in the butt to get you scheduled and all this kind of stuff. And so I was curious about like what drew you to that.
You remember the song "Whistle While You Work" in the Disney movie? Mm-hmm. I love what I do. And I think everyone needs to realize that when you're stressed, you can accidentally be trained to dislike the very thing you used to love to do. And I love what I do. And I am willing to realize that when I have a bad attitude, it's me. It's not the situation. It's that I am framing it wrong. That doesn't mean I don't frame it wrong sometimes. But why on earth, when it's my job to be the Johnny Appleseed of a bunch of concepts, would I not want to get in front of a bunch of people and promote those concepts? I'd have to be out of my mind.
Right.
And so appreciation and gratitude for the mechanisms that get you in front of people, and loving being in front of those people, regardless of if it's the day you shine or the day that you bomb. A great comedian is willing to bomb.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so your audience may need marketing advice. Right now, it's my belief that they don't need the details. They need the attitude of curiosity to test right. So everything I'm saying has an outcome. It's, do you have the attitude of curiosity to test right?
Well, this is one of the interesting things that definitely happens in the internet marketing world. And I think it's at an exaggerated pace compared to where it was pre-internet. But I've been in this game. I've been in the internet marketing game for 20 years now. And it's like, who are these young guys who are just coming in out of nowhere and making $1 bajillion and they don't even have any idea what the heck they're doing? What is that? And
there's two sets of those. There's the liars and the ones who are actually having it happen.
Well, let's say the ones who are actually having it happen. But one of the things is the unrestrained curiosity when you're entering a new world for the first time and you don't know any better, right? And you're just going for it. And so It's like you're not worried about screwing up because you already know you have no idea what you're doing. Right. And so that's such a valuable, it's just, looking at every situation with fresh eyes. It's such a valuable way to be, but hard to force yourself into it.
Well, if you face reality that all internet marketing is like learning to count cards, it's not like having a job. It's not like old school direct marketing at all. It is like learning to count cards. And when you learn to count cards and you're good at it, you only have a slight advantage over the house.
So counting cards is when you're gambling and you're
playing blackjack.
I know what counting cards is, but I've never. I was just asking about the metaphor. Yeah.
Well, I'll get back to that.
Yeah.
I'll kind of give a little more detail on the metaphor in a second.
Yeah.
But you see, the factors are, you have to wait a very long time as the shoes are being dealt, where you may not have an advantage, and you're betting the smallest bet. And then when the cards fall in your favor, the difference is you're betting higher amounts when you have a higher probability of winning. Okay. And the way that it works is certain cards have a value of -1 and certain cards have a value of +1.
Okay.
And when you're up a certain number of plus cards going by as you go through the shoes, it falls more likely that you're going to win. Okay. And so you bet higher when you're more likely to win, and you bet lower when you're not likely to win. Okay. Well, we always did this. We tested marketing, and then when it was working, we bet higher amounts. We certainly did that in the old days. On the internet, it's more like gambling. Our advantage is not the same as when there were 3 television networks and we could reach everybody and everyone was watching Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show. No marketing format has a high enough percentage of the general population to reach the correct reach and frequency to communicate. So unless you capture the leads and have enough time to have a relationship, you don't get enough communication to cause what you need. So that's why this captured lead content marketing thing is great. It has one horrible flaw, which is every other person in the entire universe is doing it too.
At this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing that we have as a problem is we have no unique selling proposition unless we're just the most beautiful, the most sexy.
Right.
We have the cutest dog. We're the most fun to listen to. We agree with them the most. But the one that always works most, of course, is bow chicka wow wow. The sexuality, the intensity,
for a time.
Yeah, right. That's right. But the thing is, it's still puppies, babies, brides, and sex.
Boobs.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Puppies, babies, brides, and sex. And the thing is that hasn't changed. It's just getting the right message And that's about interest and feeling comfortable with a message. So timing is everything. And unless you're willing to look at a situation and go, there's a real problem there, I have the real solution for it, and I'll solve that problem. Yeah. And the only way that you can do that, like there's this device that's a little black device that you can dictate into, and then it through AI summarizes and organizes the material you just gave, and then gives a summary. And it just pops over to your phone. It's super easy to use AI device. It's really amazing. And the thing is, I'm not a giant fan of AI, but I have to use it because my competition uses it.
Yeah.
And so it's,
yeah, well, if you're going to play the same game that your competition is playing, you know, if you're going to try to keep up, yeah, I mean, that's, you don't have to use it, but like,
but there's a point at which they're producing twice the content marketing of someone not using it,
or 100. Well, I mean, just to make it more like 100 times.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
like,
for 10. I mean, right now 10. Yeah. Right now, I can see 10 times easily.
Right.
You know, but even if it was only twice as much, then you're competing against twice as much content. Like, and it's a content game, right? Is there any other game, you know, other than capture lead content marketing?
There are other games which have to do with knowing when you should be doing online marketing and when you should be doing real world networking.
Yeah.
What gets lost sometimes is there's sometimes a shovel is better than a backhoe. Right. And sometimes the tool is forget digital marketing for a minute and go meet some humans.
Right.
And the thing is that what I'm saying is the thing Tellman brought up that I'm trying to join into is here's how you face the fact that the stuff you used to do doesn't fly.
Right.
And how you don't go into despair going, you know, oh no, bills, crap, you know, how do you see past the hill you're looking at? Mm-hmm. Because it's a neurological thing where you're going to go into the strategy of mitigating your disappointment, which will make you fail more, or you're going to go into the strategy of how you're going to prove your hope. But when you go into the strategy of mitigating, like, I don't want to get my hopes up because I don't want to be disappointed, and you start to go there, your decision strategy starts to just suck. Mm. And so, of course, I have a belief that our job as marketing experts, as consultants, is helping business people to be able to tolerate the time it takes to get on the other side of the bell curve of that hill, to see the new horizon, to know it's worth it to chase it till they can communicate right with that public, that niche, that they can get the machine in place,
Yeah, we're so quiet because I think we're trying to process everything. I mean, I'm so quiet because I'm trying to process everything that you're saying. I did want to go back to, like, when you say the curiosity to test right, what does test right mean? You just mean like doing split tests, or do you mean testing new things, or all that?
Well, think of it like this. There's another marketing expert that we all know, Richard Barker, who's also a stage hypnotist, very sophisticated British fellow, very disciplined guy. And he has a kind of an automatic response system that he sells, for example. And here's the thing that happens. You know, there are multiple automatic response systems for therapists. Let's say I grab Richard's system. Well, it's perfectly fine, but did I even have time to set the thing up? Did I finish the content that needs to go into it? Or did I farm it out to somebody who knew me well enough to do it? Or do I leave it hanging for 7 months because I don't have time to finish the damn thing, you know?
Right.
And so the thing is, there's discipline needed, and knowing that it's going to be worth it needed. And there's going to be confusion while you're setting up a new system, because when you put the new phone number on your website, your standing is going to go down for a while. There's all these little things that happen as you use a CRM system, or as you, and the thing is, you panic. And so what I mean is, You need enough information to have a realistic expectation of how many months it takes for things to pick up. How many weeks does it take? How many months does it take? Or are you expecting it to change so quickly that you make yourself mad and freak out and then stop doing anything because it feels like nothing is working?
Or leave that on the shelf and start doing something else.
Right. Like not reading your help book.
Right.
Yeah, exactly right, Fellman. You know, and I'm just saying that I know what it's like to sit and stare at a wall going, oh. And I know decision making is bad then.
Yeah.
I'm willing to admit my brain doesn't work worth a damn when I'm doing that.
Right. Right.
But a lot of us still take action with that brain. It's interesting. Like I've, you know, I don't know. I was about to admit that I did some drugs down back in the day, but like you would fall in love with people under certain influences, and you'd have to know, no, you didn't really fall in love with them. That was the drug doing that to you.
I don't think it's any different than reality, Fellman.
Yeah, that's no. That's what I'm saying is that you know your mind. Oh, you mean love? Your mind when it's in a stressed situation isn't. I mean, it's doing fight or flight, but it feels like it's decisioning. You know.
Well, I think one of the things that's happening is you two are very good at details. And I remember meeting Tellman years ago, and Will was a pretty big fan of how great Tellman was doing email marketing at the time. And, you know, he was very good at detail and so on, and very self-expressive. And I remember asking Will, you know, is he the real deal or not the real deal? And Will went, no, he's really doing it. It's really good, you know. And the thing is that I'm really fond of the overview. So notice we're having a content mismatch in that I'm talking about a large inferred point. And then I'm trying to leave a space where there's the patience to go, aha.
Yeah.
The problem is if somebody's a competency-based person, they think of 3 questions about what I said instead of looking at the horizon of what I said. As they think of the 3 questions, those questions could be awesome questions, or they could be going down a rabbit hole that isn't relevant to the overall point, right? So it's magical to think about look longer. Wait longer to go to the language center of your brain. Look longer. And as a magician, isn't that what you're doing?
Hopefully.
Yeah. You know, Fellman, you're so good at strategy in the way I watch you use language. You know, you're a good strategist. You're a good structurist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're very patient with structure and process.
Yes.
And that's really awesome and highly disciplined. Mm-hmm. You know, luckily I'm almost incompetent there. Okay, so the thing is that I will walk in and I will have to be kind of groomed into tolerating the details. And I'm kind of playing a game the other way around. I'm going 180 degrees and kind of grooming the conversation into the overview. Mm-hmm. But there's an actual awareness of the structural mismatch in the chunk size of how we're looking at it. Mm-hmm. Like I'm like, stipulate, it works. Yeah. Well, how can you stipulate? This could happen, and this could happen, and this could happen. Right. But just stipulate, it works. And so there's a sincerity to the message in content that starts to cause trust. There's an intention behind it. So
now we're trying to listen and not ask questions in our head. I can see both.
but yeah. So it's awesome. And the thing that is really fun about this is it's from training physicians that I know this.
Oh, right.
They love, and rightly so, they love meticulous detail.
Right. Like just bring it back to the practical, or how do I do something with that, or put it into action, or implement it, or whatever. Right.
So what do you currently do? Like, what is your like?
Whatever shows up, you know.
Yeah.
The biggest opportunity in the room, you know.
Yeah.
So I believe very strongly in multiple income streams. Mm-hmm. And I believe the person who taught it the best was Dottie Walters, who wrote Speak and Grow Rich. And what she had in her book, in her, when you'd fly out to her house to train, is she had an octopus cartoon. And on the octopus cartoon, there would be various parts of your business, like let's say shows, corporate speaking, consulting, working for corporations long-term, trainings, right? And what she would do is show that whichever arm was actually getting a hold is the arm that you focus on to have the correct relationship with opportunity, rather than with I'm expressing myself doing this. So it's not I'm a this or that, it's the opportunity is this or that.
Mhm.
And so, I'm in multiple income streams as a hypnotist, neurolinguist, consultant, trainer, trainer of therapists, working with lay people, doing corporate speaking, flying around to the state licensed schools that were created in my system, or whatever it is, or teaching on the sailboat. The point is that it takes a certain relationship with reality and spontaneity rather than with the system.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter what I do, it matters what they need.
it's interesting because you've presented yourself also as a magician, so it's got me in my magician mind as well. Like I have a big difficulty with that. Like I just want to do shows that people paid to come see comedy or magic or me, and that's really like that's a long game versus I can go do a corporate gig for $1,500, or whatever.
But you're going to have to do both. See, the thing is, it's not either or, it's and.
I know,
And I think it's about, and this word maturity, I mean as a process word, not as a judgment of value. But I mean, you have to have the maturity to love the and instead of be put out by the and. It needs to feel like relief instead of pressure. It needs to feel like relief instead of pressure. You can't think, yeah, but I wanna. The grass is always greener on the other side of the septic tank, as Burma Bombeck said in the 70s. And the problem is, if you think with an either or, you're always going to think of what you miss from the other one.
Right.
So this is a very healing thing for all of us. I would love to say I've got this mastered, but I would be lying my butt off.
Right.
Because it triggers the other way around. But we have to be able to contrast the frame and say, why am I playing this game? Why am I acting?
Well, but the things that you listed, there's some connection to those things. And
there's always some connection, Fellman.
Sure.
You love distinctions because you're intellectual. Remember the little analogy.
You're making me not feel so intellectual. All this stuff is like making my brain hurt. I'm like, am I? Yeah.
So yeah. But this is the idea this is the structure of intuition is to back up really far to get a wide overview, take in that overview, and then reapply yourself to the details. And all this conversation is doing is back up, back up, back up, back up. And then stay there and don't jump in with what you're supposed to do so fast. Assume what you're going to do is pending longer. Because you're so blessed. I mean, you have so much you can do. And Tellman is just amazingly successful with what he does, and he can tolerate risk better than most people. It's magical. And he's willing to be himself and tolerate the risk, which is quite a dichotomy, because he's always been very self-expressive. Like right now, I'm the guy wearing the goofy beard, and he's shaved. When we met, it was the other way around.
That's right.
So I'm inviting you to fall in love with that. All I'm doing is using the neurolinguistic programming concept of the structure of intuition from Wyatt Wood Small and those guys back then. I'm just saying, hey, let loose a second. Take 10 steps back and look at the painting a different way, and then walk up again. Let your mind let loose.
How?
And as I'm asking you to let loose, you're going, but. And I'm like,
I'm saying how. This time I'm saying how.
Right now, let somebody get their finger in your belt loop.
Oh, I thought you were going to say somewhere else.
No, let somebody
I was going to say, oh, Scott.
Yeah. I feel close to you, but not that close.
No,
but if somebody gets a hold of your belt loop when they're giving you a little pull backward, let them. Then do it yourself.
What do you mean when you say a pull backward?
when I'm teaching, I tell a story a lot about my father and I for 6 straight hours over a scotch when I was a young man. I was having a kind of a conflict with my younger sister. We're both adults, of course, but we were, in whatever siblings do. And I would re-explain why I was irritated with her. And he would go, Scott, you don't want to be right. And for 6 straight hours, I would re-explain myself in various ways. And he would go, you don't want to be right. I would love to claim to be really bright, but I, obviously wasn't that bright because it took 6 straight hours. And he wouldn't explain himself. And I want you to notice what I'm doing in this conversation with you is I'm not really answering the chunk down questions very much. In the same way that he just kept saying, yeah, you don't want to be right. And for 6 hours this went on. And it took me 6 hours before I realized all my sister needs is for me to caringly validate her and notice what's going on with her. And I'm the problem. Mm-hmm. I'm the person thinking that in some way I'm needing, I had it backward in my head, but it took me 6 hours to flip my perception rather than the answers and the language, but to see it different and then feel it different and then do it different, to see it different, then feel it different, then do it different. And see, it's difficult in that time when somebody goes, what is isn't and what isn't is. And we're like, would you say something? Would you make a point? And that's with my dad. I'm like, you don't understand,
Right.
And so I was an advocate and a lawyer for my point of view.
Yeah.
And I don't like lawyers all that much.
Right.
I have a friend who's
I don't know. I can't say we all, but I know that the facts left us a long time ago. Like I used to think we could have a discussion based on fact and being right. And that's totally destroyed now. It is because we all have information, but we have too much information. So we can all prove that we're right if we want to.
Right. Well, we can now talk about the idea of drilling down to processes and writing down action steps after we do this step. You two and I have been having a conversation that is based on the idea of, hey, stand back here a minute. That's all. And look at it different. And you feel the urgency to go do something. But when there's no fire, there's no fire. And when there's a lack of money or pressure or you're worried, that's when you have to back up and feel safe twice as much. That's when you need the insight.
Rather than running straight into it.
There's when money is just a way of keeping score. They print more of it every day. And there's always a way.
I mean, that's been my problem this year is too many opportunities, not too few. I mean, for sure, there's so many ways of, making money or whatever. So like, that's definitely, valid because there's a million ways for me to make money, much less in the world, not a million probably.
Thank your subconscious mind for wanting to do the right thing, Fellman. And ask it to consider 3 creative options that allow you to do a lot of things. And that you're not concerned with missing out so much or the best so much as you are with the curiosity of what magical skill is in every one of them for you. And realize that you were really good at specializing in discipline. And this is just another skill. Because you're already great at what you do, but this is a matter of a feeling. It's just a little feeling of patience that goes in one tiny little spot. And it's magical, So it's like that integrates with all the other great things you're good at, but it's just this relaxation in this one little spot. And you can do it with other things. You can do it with maybe all kinds of other stuff. You maybe have that insight with people or friends or helping someone or whatever. But when it comes to your career and picking what you're going to do next, your identity's been at risk. So this asset that you have all over a place, you now find that. But it was a little tight around that before, But it's magical to just, realize you already have this. It's just you didn't go in the toolbox and get it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden things flow and it feels like who you are again. I mean, that is right. It's what happens for all of us, isn't it? Or you could go back to feeling slightly different pressure than you felt before, which you don't like very much.
Right.
So notice that's a formula. Intensify the pain of the problem, show the solution, prove the solution, explain slightly, take away the risk, show the action, and show the consequences for not doing it. If we literally just did that formally in a normal conversation, in an organic way, and that's why, sure, we need the attitude, but even in this general overview, there are specifics in an action plan that are actually happening that are emotionally valid. While using the idea from Fritz Perls of agree with the positive intentions of the behavior. So all of a sudden we see that, yeah, the details are important and the studying is important and the knowing the details is important. But without that comfort, we don't go back in our bag of tricks and get what we want. And look at how all the people on this meeting are great at feedback. They're great at tolerating feedback. They're magical. Fellman and I have been going back and forth like tennis with a feedback model, and he's awesome at it. He's awesome at it. And Tellman is sitting, just beautifully going, I will interject only when it is needed. Extremely aware. And he's, it's like, these are people who are externally aware and they're in their senses. And isn't that what we're helping people to do? To get out of their fear and going in their head and running around in their head instead of out here playing with the other kids.
That's right.
So I hope that you see that all I think about marketing is that people freak out when there's risk. And how do they learn anything when they're freaking out? So I don't know if that's useful.
I don't know. I feel like yesterday we had we did a hot seat yesterday with somebody where we talked about his business. I feel like you've hot seated my brain, like and maybe people listening get something from that as well. So that's kind of the idea of the exposition, I suppose.
I'm curious, Fellman, if you taught me back what the coolest thing you got out of that was, what would it be? Just what's cool about it?
Yeah, I mean, to figure out how to not take action automatically when you're in pain or in whatever pain. I guess pain's the right word for it. But to take a step back and try to observe what you're doing, and your choices will probably be a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Cool. That's awesome. So notice how easy he's got the feedback. He can say it back. It's awesome. And then the other thing I would do is if we were playing live, like if we were in my office, right?
Well, we are.
I would have you write it out and say, I would get rid of the try, the probably, the maybe, and the sortas. I would have you imagine it without hedging your bet. So I would, in other words, has the person decided or are they considering? And the consideration phase includes I maybe, I'll try to, and of course that's Yoda, do or do not.
Right.
There is no try.
Well, and that's where you're coming back to the comply, aspect of from earlier in the conversation. Like you drill people, you call people out to make sure that they're, they listen to their words and that they want to figure out if they want to comply with what they're sitting there for. I didn't know that I signed up for a hypnosis session today, but I'm always, like you said, I'm open to feedback. I'm open to,
What's valuable about this conversation is your relationship with the feedback, not what I'm saying. The fact that it's a model for people to watch, to go, hey, that guy's safe. That guy's amazing, But I think it's really fun to recognize that this is opportunistic, which was the point of the conversation a half an hour ago. Right?
For you.
And for you, it's opportunistic. Because as you express yourself and you're kicking butt and you're expressing your own relationship with change, And then it can be even more joyous or more comfortable or even more lovely or more, integrative. It's like if you walk right by that moment when somebody could be like integrating and even happier, are you just giggling, leaving them not doing it?
Right.
So it's like I need people to do that for me.
Right.
The ways that people always did that for me over my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs that, and yet nobody levels that way. So notice how magical it is that there was no blaming, placating, overanalyzing, distracting. As the Virginia Satir model points out, it's all your fault. Whatever you want, I'm just here for you. If one were to analyze this, one would find, or just distracting, which is what people do when they can't take feedback or can't level. And notice how in these conversations, there was none of that.
Well, I mean, you've drawn us in as well. I would say one of my tactics would be to I mean, maybe not lately, but to distract with humor, right? So, but yeah, I don't know. You somehow, I don't know. Maybe it's the format that we're in. Like what?
No, it's not the format. So I want to say, like, Scott, from the moment we met, and I think I probably saw you present on stage NGA, like at the National Guild of Hypnotists convention back in like 2000, 2001. Like, there was always something. I mean, you're really coming into your wizardly phase right now. Like, it's really good. Like, there's always something magical about the way that you connect and present your perspective and the way that you communicate is like inclusive of greater dimensions than most people are willing to go into in the conversation. And I always really liked that and respected that about you. Sometimes it is frustrating trying to get like to the point and to the implementation part or the practical, but it always causes for like behind the scenes expansive kind of neurological development and thoughtfulness. We haven't had that many conversations in our lifetime. We've had a handful, really, and I've always really enjoyed interacting with you, and I feel like you brought an enormous amount of that to our interview here today. It was less of an interview; it was more of a live therapy session, which was pretty badass.
Well, it's actually not really therapy. It's what would have to happen in business consulting for the person to, if they were sort of looking at it through their lens.
Right.
The question is, how do you help them to see what's not through that lens?
Right. No, it's an art. It's an art. You're really good at it.
Well, thanks. Yeah. But it's like the person who's good at it in this meeting, of course, is Fellman, because Fellman is the person who's sitting there going, okay, I'm going to consider this, even though I'm already an experienced, amazing businessman, but I can sit here and do this.
Right.
If you watch Hell's Kitchen or Restaurant Impossible,
you'll
realize how few people can do that.
Oh, yeah, it's hard.
Life depends on it.
Yeah, it's really hard to take feedback and openly learn from it and be curious about someone else's perspective that's different and could easily be taken as critical of yours, like.
Right. So the big thing is we're considering the future, not the past. And how do you keep them seeing that so they're not thinking that you're talking about their past?
Right.
It's harder to do than it looks to do that.
Oh, yeah.
It's a weird thing because everybody goes, yeah, but this happened before. Or yeah, but.
Right. Yeah.
It's harder to look than it sounds. And I love doing it. And I really enjoyed playing back and forth with both of you. And I'm glad that I got to come hang out with you. I mean, I'm really glad.
This was awesome. We are a little past the hour. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. This was awesome. Guys, if you want to follow Scott McFall, learn more from him, and perhaps one day when he has availability, learn from him or work with him in some capacity, hypnosisconnection.com is where you want to go in order to follow what he's doing and what he's up to.
How do they find out more about us?
Oh, well, of course, you can go to tellmanandfellman.com.
You two have a great show. You have a great show, and I'm really glad I got to be a part of your fun.
Thanks.
Awesome.
I appreciate you being here. definitely didn't go in a direction that I was signed up for today, but here we are. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time, and
You too, man.
This was great.
Super fun. Scott, I would love to do more stuff with you in the future. So if we should circle back and see if there are other opportunities that present themselves. But this was a
First,
really
take a step back, then circle back.
Yeah, we'll talk to you in a few days.
Awesome, guys.
But the really awesome, very unique episode. Like this is a standout episode. Really, really loved it, and hopefully our viewers did too. But even if they didn't, this was great as far as I'm concerned. I really, really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thanks, both of you. It was wonderful fun.
Awesome.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Talk to you soon.